Hello, welcome to part two of Socialist Transformation. We're on page 371 of the text. By 1954, the communists' hold on power in China was secure. The People's Representative Congress passed a constitution that legitimized the PRC as a one-party dictatorship. The three highest leaders were Mao Zedong, who was chairman of the Chinese Communist Party and president of the People's Republic of China, Liu Shaoqi, chairman of the Standing Committee and the National People's Congress, and Zhou Enlai, premier of the State Council. And here they are, Mao Zedong, Liu Shaoqi, and Zhou Enlai. Note that both Zhou Enlai and Mao Zedong died in 1976. The CCP granted a monopoly over political power as the dictatorship of the proletariat. Based on scientific socialism and party guidance, China could address centuries-old problems of poverty and weakness. Holdover staff underwent political re-education, also called as thought reform, 思想改造. That's the Chinese, those four characters there. The USA was increasingly hostile towards the CCP and sought to break with the West, and the CCP sought to break with the West and align with the Soviet Union. In February of 1950, China and the Soviet Union signed a treaty of friendship. Mao visited Moscow in 1950, and Stalin agreed to 5-year, $300 million loans. China's link to the Eastern Bloc led to the most systematic transfer of knowledge and technology in modern history. The PLA, the People's Liberation Army, copied the structure of the Soviet Army. The CCP was locked in battle against imperialism and capitalism. Its security depended on close alliance with Communist Soviet Union. Mao and Stalin in 1950 expressed mutual determination to provide assistance to the North Koreans. Macarthur had his own agenda to expand the Korean War to the point of moving against China. Harry Truman, the president then, surprised the world when he removed Douglas Macarthur, whom he accused of unilaterally escalating the conflict. There's a picture of Harry Truman and a picture of Doug Macarthur with his corncob pipe. The Korean War brought personal loss to Mao, whose oldest son, Mao Anying, was killed in the conflict. The Korean War was the third costliest war of the 20th century, behind World Wars I and II. Mao had to concentrate China's resources on Korea, postponing any attack on Taiwan. Here is Mao Anying, who died in the Korean War. And I'm going to show you a video right now. Let me cue it up. Go with this video about the Korean War.
Second World War, the United States and Soviet Union emerged as two global superpowers, each one with a very different idea of what a society should look like. The battle between communism and capitalism would continue for decades, but first boiled over in the Korean Peninsula in East Asia. To better understand the conflict, here are 5 facts you need to know about the Korean War. The first step in understanding the Korean War is to learn the geography. After Japan's surrender in 1945, the United States took control of the southern half of Korea, while the Soviet Union took the north. They were divided by the 38th parallel, a horizontal line that split the peninsula in two. Wasn't it the poet Robert Frost who said good fences make good neighbors? Well, in this case, he would have been wrong. North and South Korea were not too keen on accepting the new line drawn in the sand, and skirmishes between the new neighbors often flared up along the border. The United States and President Truman were deeply concerned with the spread of communism.
We are united in detesting communist slavery,
which they viewed as a direct threat to American democracy. Truman also wanted to prevent Russia from gaining any more territory, and believed communist North Korea was the Russians' first step towards world domination. Therefore, he believed he had no choice but to stop the North Korean army after they invaded the South in June of 1950. At first, North Korean forces were victorious, driving South Korean and U.S. troops nearly out of the country by August. But with the help of the United Nations, the U.S. forces resupplied and rallied, recapturing the South Korean capital of Seoul in September and crossing the 38th parallel the month after. Korea was a country with freezing winters and broiling summers, making the actual combat miserable for both sides. Disease, malnutrition, and frostbite were constant worries. General Douglas MacArthur believed a total victory was the only acceptable outcome for the U.S. President Truman disagreed, but MacArthur was adamant, and after he was caught privately lobbying his views in Congress, Truman relieved him of duty for his insubordination. While all this was going down, North Korean forces had driven the UN troops back to the 38th parallel, and by May of 1951, the armies were more or less at a stalemate. For the next 2 years, neither side gained any significant ground, although fighting did continue both on land and in the air. Peace talks started in the summer of 1951, shortly after the start of the stalemate. Negotiations threatened to drag on even longer until President Dwight Eisenhower took office in 1953. Eisenhower was determined to end the war. Joseph Stalin, who wanted to keep the war going, died in March of that year. After a few months more of negotiation, the armistice was signed in July, ending the 3+ year slog of fighting. The Korean War was a relatively short but costly conflict. 36,000 U.S. troops were killed, with over 100,000 wounded. 620,000 soldiers from North and South Korea were killed, but more disturbingly, 1.6 million civilians lost their lives throughout the Korean peninsula. The 38th parallel still divides the two Koreas today, serving as a demilitarized zone. 4,400 yards of empty space separates the two countries, whose borders are defended by armed troops 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
So I'm going to stop there and we'll take it up in the next part.